Welcome to the NRR Growth Engine podcast. I'm Rakefet here with my co-host Hadass, and we're thrilled to kick off this series where we dive deep into the world of customer revenue growth. Each episode we'll be talking with top leaders in customer success, CROs, CEOs, and SaaS visionaries who will share actionable insights on driving customer revenue and scaling profitability. Whether you're looking to refine your growth strategies or take your business to the next level, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, Dan. We're so excited to have you as our very first guest on Maple's new podcast.
I'm number one.
You're number one, as always, on our new podcast, NRR Growth Engine. As a seasoned leader who played a key role in building the sales organization at HubSpot and someone deeply involved in customer success strategy, we are excited to hear your perspective on the evolving relationship between sales and customer success, especially how that impacts driving customer revenue.
Yes. Increasing or optimizing customer revenue. That's what we're going to spend the next 26 minutes talking about, right?
Exactly.
Ooh, I love that.
And Dan, I know that you've been at the forefront of creating strategies to increase that revenue for organizations, which is what we just said, a key focus of the conversation. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about your journey thus far and what brought you to the point where you are driving collaboration between those sales and customer success to maximize that customer revenue?
Amazing. All right. As the inventor of the term schmarketing, do you know schmarketing, Hadass?
No.
Sales and marketing pushed together. I invented that term in 2007. It was picked up by Professor Thomas Steenberg, who was teaching at Harvard Business School. And my nephew just went through a program at Harvard Business School, and he sent me a copy of schmarketing in the curriculum. He goes, yes. Uncle, is that you? And I'm like, yes, it is. Right. And I was just goofing around with Mike Volpe, who was the first CMO of HubSpot. And when I first started as the first salesperson for HubSpot, I had a cold call for HubSpot. Don't tell anybody because HubSpot's the anti-cold calling company, right? But we started to get inbound leads, and I'm like, this is great. This is better than like anything else I could do. And Mike is like, why? I'm like, I call these people. I go, this is Dan from HubSpot. And they're like, oh, yeah. I was on your website on Sunday night. And like no cold caller in the world before 2007 had ever heard that. And I'd be like, ooh, tell me about that. And they like rattle off what they were interested in, how they were doing. And I'm like, no, Mike, we need more of those kind of leads. 90% of my time is wasted on people who don't care about anything. And those people are very, very interested and they've shown intent. He's like, yeah, that's why we started the company, Dan. We're going to build software where that motion works. I'm like, well, while you're building the software, like get me more of those leads. He goes, I can't. I'm like, why? He's like, I don't have any headcount. I'm like, I'll give you a sales headcount. He goes, you'll give me a sales headcount for marketing to create more inbound leads. I'm like, it's not sales, it's not marketing, it's schmarketing. Sales and marketing pushed together, right? And he said, that's pretty funny. And Mark Roberge heard that, told it to Professor Thomas Steenberg, and he wrote this case study called Web 2.0 HubSpot, Sales and Marketing, which is now, schmarketing website is worth $150,000, that URL, which I wasn't smart enough to capitalize on, but I'm glad to bring in such a weird term. And then, right, so we had schmarketing meetings at HubSpot probably before you were there. And then it branched off into customer success. And like, we can't just stop once it is sales and marketing. It's the whole way in which you manage customers. So it's both sales as marketing as well as customer success. I don't have an acronym for that, but maybe I do. Helping, sales and helping push together. Right? I'm just an idea hamster. Exactly. And what we want to do is we want a seamless transition. It's not what we want. It's what customers want. And what we were talking about in the briefing meeting, customers' expectations are a lot different today than they've ever been. And so we're going to recognize that. We're going to make sure that we give you tangible tips. Rocketfish said no fluff. I don't want any fluff on this podcast, which I'm happy to deliver. All tangible 10 ways to make sure you're optimizing customer revenue in 2024.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. Fantastic overview as always. Now, when you were building the sales strategy at HubSpot, how did you balance the relationship between sales and customer success? And major challenges you had in keeping those teams aligned while ensuring that customer success wasn't just an afterthought, but a critical driver in growing customer loyalty and long-term revenue?
Yeah, we failed forward fast, right? We didn't even have customer success when we first started. We just figured people use the software and they use it. And in the first week and a half, we realized, hold on a second. Buying the software is not the same as using the software, which is not the same as being successful at software. So we set up a separate division around customer success. And one of the things we talked about, the difference between the early days of HubSpot and 2024, is that now for all scale-ups, right, they need to have their third employee needs to be customer success. Right? Because in the old days, if you weren't doing a good job, customer would kind of whine and complain a little bit, but that was it. Today, if you're not doing a good job, number one, there are 45 competitors, right? And they'll jump to that competitor very, very easily. Number two, it's critical to your brand, to your execution, to your data, right? And to your flywheel, getting more customers. So now your third employee, you have a tech founder, you have a growth founder, and then you have a customer success person, right? That obsesses over how to make your customers successful, right? And I define success, this is a Dan Tyreism, right? But adding at least 3x the value than you're paying the SaaS company, right? If you can't, and people say 3x, how did you get to 3x? And that's my gut check. If you're saving me 10%, you're mildly interesting, right? If you're doubling my investment, if you can point and show me how I'm saving, every dollar I save, I spend with you, I'm saving $2, I'm happy. If you save 3 to 1, I'm like, yeah, I need more of that, which is why I bought HubSpot twice. I pay for dantyre.com, runs on HubSpot, which they're like, no, you can get a free portal because you're a 17-year employee. I'm like, no, I want to pay for it. Because, right, it's my lifeblood. I love HubSpot. I love being in HubSpot. I love the HubSpot value proposition. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to continue to grow my company without any disruption, right? So in the early days, right, we started a division. And then defining those process, the most critical part is the handoff of where sales stops and where customer success, and you got ladies were smart enough to recognize that in the briefing meeting. And so there's a couple of requirements that you need for that handoff. Number one, it's different for different companies. Some models in 2024 have the salespeople sticking with the customer for an extended period of time, sometimes for the lifetime of that customer. And that kind of makes sense. Because if I buy from you from Rackafeet, and I like you, Rackafeet, because you're smart and thoughtful and really understand my problems, I want you around as much as I can, right? Because you know a little bit of my background, because I built that relationship with you and it adds value. And you know the problems that I have actually even a little bit better than I know. If in fact your business model is, no, I want to pass it over to customer success, you got to do the mind meld. That is, I need to understand everything that you know about me and pass that on to customer success in a tangible way. That means you have to fill out all the critical information. That means I need all the data points. That means you have to tell me either verbally or in a document what I like and what I don't like. And that means the customer success person, when they cycle in, needs to say, okay, these are the 3 things Rackafeet told me to focus on. And these are the 3 things she said to never bring up. I'm going to bring them up once because I want to make sure that they're accurate. And the customer said, that's exactly right. That is amazing. And like, we don't want to lose any part of that relationship. And I'm going to invite her back in for a quarterly update, at least twice a year, right? Because she's interested in your success, because we want to make sure that she passes along all this information. And if she can see things based on what she knows, right, it'd be very valuable for the ongoing relationship. And in all the times that I've done that kind of handoff, have all the lead intelligence, have all the data, these are the 3 things that we're going to focus on, at least for the first 6 months. These are the 3 things that maybe in the second 6 months or that we're not going to talk about. It's been highly successful. And it feels like you're a genie that's floating around my keyboard. It feels like, okay, you heard me. You have those right. And if you don't have them right, it's good to get it right in the middle of in the early part of the conversation. You're like, no, those are, like, you got 1 out of the 3, Tyre, but what we really want, you're like, okay, I'll cycle back and understand why she had the other 2 things, but let's change those right now. And that's be a little bit different, but that's how you forge that relationship. And I do have 10 things of 10 tangible ways of increasing or optimizing customer revenue. And one of them is those reviews. And in my early days as an entrepreneur, we used to do them every quarter for a certain size company, right? And they were largely a dog and pony show because getting the data back then was hard. And we'd invite the senior executives who had no idea what was going on. They were just there because their executive assistant told them to show up. But it was very, very valuable because it allowed us to get the visibility that we needed for the smaller decisions. And working together, all the information, it was both the vendor as well as the customer working together to say, no, we have to show the improvement. This is what we have to do. And it was really a galvanizing event. Today, most of our tire portfolio companies do it at least twice a year. That is, if you have a customer that is more than 10% of your revenue, you don't want to lose. If it's higher in their gross profit, you want to make sure they're locked in. And one of the ways to do that is to do a biannual quarterly review. People are like, what's that? It's like it's a 25-minute Zoom meeting where we're going to send you all of the information and statistics that we've compiled. We want to show you how we're adding 3X. And we want to show you and walk you through all the things we're doing behind the scenes so that you're successful with our product. People are like, yeah, I'll do that. And we want to know in advance, if we can, the 3 things that would make the partnership more powerful. And the 3 things that is like, you know, if you could fix this, we'd appreciate it. And the 3 things that you absolutely hate, right? Like if your UI needs support or you're not good. And you probably know most of them, but it gives a customer an opportunity in a closed space, recording so that they can pass around to other executives if they're interested, so that they know, number one, you're vested in the relationship. Number 2, they know that you're focused on the right things, which is customer success. Number 3, you can quantify that information because at some point in time, some miserly CFO is going to look at you, Hadass, and say, okay, why are we paying this much money? And if you have, these are the 3 reasons. Every dollar we put in HubSpot, we get $3 back. You'd be like, okay, move on to the next one, right? And you're helping the customer retain by having this relationship. The other thing that I wanted to mention that we talked about in the briefing meeting is the gorilla dance, right? And Rockafit, have you ever heard of the gorilla dance?
I only today. It was my first time.
All right. So the gorilla dance is where you get an executive sponsor. And once again, if you're trying to lock in additional customer revenue, you pick your top customers or your top aspirational customers. Hadash, you know there's certain situations where you're like, this is the perfect customer, right? These guys have everything, right? They're scaling quickly. They're adding more customers. They very much value our CRM or our marketing. They have campaigns, programs going on. What they value is the data to show what the priorities should be. And so we never want to lose this customer, and we want to continue to increase the value that we provide to them commensurate with what they're paying. And so I'm going to get my CEO or my chief revenue officer or my marketing officer or my VP of customer success to talk to you. And I quite transparently call it the gorilla dance. And why? If you bring Dan Tyre from Tyre Angel onto your customer success biannual meeting, you got the gorilla. Right? There's only 3 people in the company, but you got the top guy. And I'm going to say, number 1, I appreciate your business. Number 2, the team has done a good job of preparing all this information. But if there's ever something that goes sideways, if there's ever something that sticks in your craw, if there's ever something that you're not happy about, here's my phone number, 602-432-7451. Text me, right? Are you a text person or a call person? Everybody over 50 is a call person. Everybody under 50 is a text person. They're like, I'll text you or WhatsApp me, right? I always WhatsApp Rockafeet because 5,000 miles away. But and I want to know, and I want to know quickly enough, right? I won't do any of the work. The account team will do all the work, but I'll be like, what's going on with Rockafeet? How come they're not like, and that early warning system is invaluable. And the ability for me to meet with those customers twice a year, and the ability for us to manage the project towards those executive biannual meetings, right, completely changes the game. Everybody's all excited. No, we got an update coming up in November. And I'm like, yes, we do. And they're like, no, we have to get this feature done. It puts this really nice customer experience forefront because don't want to disappoint the gorillas. Don't want people saying, well, yeah, but we should have this here. We want to get it done. And it kind of timestamps it. And it's a very effective way of get all the both the customer and the vendor on the same page.
Yeah. And Dan, prior to this, during our briefing call, we talked a lot about the reality or the perfect world, or what we're imagining how customers are moving or thinking or wanting to do, and the reality of competitors, the reality of changing technologies, the reality of really how customers are envisioning. And I know that you have, if I'm not mistaken, in the number 10, like a 10-phase structure of really how to approach expansions or increasing revenues within companies. Can you share that with us?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. That's what the benefit of a briefing meeting. So I get all my thoughts together and ready to go. All right. So number one, I want to make sure that all of the people listening to this podcast, whether you're selling or buying, the higher 3x value, right? Once again, if you're not providing 3 times the value that you're paying, then you're at risk, right? And it's my own personal kind of thing. If you get your data scientists to figure out, no, we're adding 10x or 12x, right? Let's be very transparent about how you figure that out. Let's share that with the customer. Number 2, you want to measure everything, right? And we were talking about the rise of the PQL, right? PQL is product qualified leads, right? And most people know leads, right? The grandfather of new business development. And then some people know MQLs, marketing qualified leads. That's the demo request for people who come back and fill out a lead form multiple times. SQLs, the sales qualified leads, we love those. They close at a very high rate because they're very specific. Talk to a salesperson, and in 2024, very few people want to talk to a salesperson unless they want a discount or they want to understand the right product fit. And then PQLs are amazing. And I discovered PQLs when I was working with Andy Petrie at HubSpot. And I'm like, what is it? It's a product qualified lead, which is in when I go into my HubSpot, which I pay for myself, I go to the reporting a couple of times, or I go to the new Breeze, the AI thing that's incredible. And I go multiple times and they're like, okay, you've been there 8 times already, Tyre. Are you trying to do more reports? And I'm like, yes, I am. And they're like, you could go to the advanced reporting feature that'll cost you $20 a month. And that happens automatically. And I'm like, no, I did not. And yes, thank you very much. And the conversion is ridiculous, off the charts. Number 1, I appreciate that you're tracking everything I'm doing. Number 2, I like the fact that I'm going to reports 8 times in one day. Number 4, I have that problem because everybody goes to reports 4 times a day. It has the same problem. If you can solve it for $20, right? I'm opening my wallet right now, right? I'm giving you my credit card, right? That is, and you're loving it because it's optimizing revenue just by measuring all those kind of things. And if you're a software company, you don't have PQLs in your product, right? Talk to Rack of Feet or talk to somebody at HubSpot, because PQLs convert at a higher level. They are very inintrusive. This is the first time in the history of selling that people are happy to give you the money. They're like, no. If you could solve that problem, right? And you have all the data, and you can tell whether they're just like mildly interested or if I'm hardcore going after my reports. That is a great way to do it. Then Dharmesh Shah, my buddy from co-founder of HubSpot, he wrote what's called the customer code. And he has 7 ways that customers make it easy for customers to stay. Like, you don't want to lock in customers. You want to make it easy for them to sign up. You want to make it easy for them to buy. You also want to make them easy to leave in a way in which they don't talk trash about you. Then number 4, in tangible things, don't do anything sleazy with the price, or don't even indicate that you're going to do something that is unethical or immoral. Never sell my data. If you sell my data, right, I'll blow my stack publicly, right? Because that's just evil. Talking to you, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, Cambridge Analytics, right? We've been down that road, and you knew exactly what was going on, right? You miserable guy. I don't care if you're a billionaire. That was wrong, and you knew it was wrong, and you should have come out and said it's wrong, and you better never do it again. I think he learned his lesson. But selling data or doing anything, even if you don't actually do it, right? You got to be very, very apparent with all of your actions. Right. Mm-hmm. Transparency is a very important component of increasing optimizing customer revenue in 2024. And I don't mind paying a little bit more as long as you tell me why, and you keep reminding me why it's 3x. That's why if you're only 1.5x, right, and you raise my price, I'm like, I don't think it's worth it. Right. Because, as you said, Adas, the modern buyer is different. Right? Everybody's rational in their own mind, but oh my goodness, there's a wide range from my beautiful wife who scrutinizes everything these days to my grandmother talking trash to the Verizon rep on the phone, right? This is a sweet little old lady who's like, no, I don't want to. And that's just the way of the world today. So you got to make sure that you're the fifth one is solving for the customer. And that's always hard, right? Because I gave the example, I have a buddy who was buying HubSpot for 3 years. And then he went on vacation for 2 months. 2 months. What's going on, AJ? And he comes back and he had auto-renewed. And he's like, you got to help me. I'm like, it's out of my hands. There are people who are paid on this at HubSpot based on you automatically renewing and not following up to the 14 emails that they sent you, the 3 phone calls that they made that's clearly indicated in your HubSpot portal. And he's like, yeah, I might have missed that. I'm like, well, it's your responsibility. We're a publicly traded company. We should do do it. He's like, I know. It's definitely my fault, 100% my fault. I still want you to fix it. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I went back to the customer success rep. I'm like, okay, here's the scenario. AJ says it's his fault. He admits all the kind of thing. Is there any way? And the HubSpot rep was amazing. They're like, it is his fault, 100%. You know, people are paid on this. You know, this is a huge hairball. You know, this is going to be hard for us to reset. And then they did it. And they rolled it back. And I was like, I cried little orange tears, right? Because it's a perfect example of how hard it is, right? How difficult it was. Just engaging with the customer success person. She's paid on this, right? It's the hardest thing ever, but they solve for the customer. That is like amazing. I tell that story all the time because it shows the values, ethics, and when Yamini says we let the people make the decision that closest to the customer, and that was a hard decision for that, and she made the right decision. Now AJ's like telling everybody to buy HubSpot. He's like, they're the greatest company in the world, pounding the table, right? And then he tells that story, which everybody feels good about. And it costs us a little money, but it's worthwhile. Solving for the customer is always hard, but it's the right thing to do. All right. Then number 6 is customer only events, right? And this is either, I think it's John Dick. It may be one of the other incredible VPs at HubSpot. I'm not sure, but somewhere along the line, they're like, we're only going to market specific events for our customers. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting because sometimes you see advice or campaigns that aren't for the customers. And it's a better deal for the new customers. I'm thinking of all of the betting apps here in the United States. Every 2 minutes, you see a betting app. And if you're a new bettor, you get extra $200 for making a $10 bet, right? How about the bettors that are losing all their money like regular? You give us something? Not that I'm included that 80 times in this podcast, but you got to honor your current customers. And it was John or maybe it was Rachel Leisner. Somebody was like, let's have specific events just for our best customers. And at Inbound is amazing. And through the partner channel, Angie O'Dowd, amazing, right? And specific opportunities, lower prices, more value in connection to the executives, all of which it makes me feel special, makes them feel like they're actually paying more money. All right, so customer-only events, then executive sponsorship we talked about, the quarterly reviews we talked about. Also, it's important to understand that there's usually different personas in one account, and you got to keep multiple people happy. You have to keep the economic buyer happy by the 3X. You have to keep the user happy, right? And the user's usually not that happy about taking on more responsibility. Sometimes they are because they learn new stuff. Sometimes they're like, oh my goodness, this is 10 hours a week that I didn't have planned out. And so understanding what the user has to do and making sure that they're happy, the economic buyer and the executive sponsor, that's 3X. That's why customer success in most cases is so hard, right? Because not all of those constituencies have the same goals. Some are counterintuitive. And the art of engaging on a regular basis, understanding, defining priorities, and keeping everybody happy, very, very challenging, but important. And then the last thing is support, right? And if there's any way to wire your best customers to another level of support, right? There are certain customers in Tyre Angel that they have the bat phone, right? They can text me anytime, 7x24, and I'm going to respond within 5 minutes or I'm sleeping. Phone won't notify. And that gives them a level of comfort that I value the relationship, I lean into the relationship, and they're getting treated a little bit differently than everybody else, right? And it turns out that that is a very valuable motion that launches these long-term relationships, right? Because if Rakafit feels like she's being treated with white glove service, and if she knows at any time, she might not even use it, maybe once or twice a year, right? But that she can get a hold of the top dog, that gives her comfort, reduces her risk, right? Makes her more vested in the relationship, and will ultimately end in increasing or optimizing customer revenue. Boom! Okay, that was a lot of stuff, man. That was a rant.
You got it done.
Got to get off my soapbox. But those are the things that we prepared with your great questions in advance to make sure your listeners understand. Right there, 10 things. And if we cycle later, I meet you at airport, or the next time I'm in Tel Aviv and we're talking about this, I'm like, did you listen to that podcast?
What's number 5?
Exactly. And if they don't have their gorilla dance or their executive sponsor of the biannual meetings, I'm like, okay, go back and listen to the podcast. Those are tangible things that they're very, very important, right? Because establishing these long-term relationships is, and what it is we put our customers at the forefront of generating new customers, right? And the reason I'm a great reference for HubSpot is I buy it myself. And I can say things the HubSpot rep would never say. And people are crazy if they're not focused on the technology. And you can use whatever you want, except it's quicker, faster, cheaper. I'm not the sharpest tech tool in the shed, but like I can get in my HubSpot, I can figure things out, and I can, and I'm a great customer reference because I use it all the time, right? And Kira uses it all the time, right? And Navy uses it all the time. It's a great way of, it's like a testimonial, where that's really what the modern buyer wants. They don't want a salesperson to tell them what they're going to do. They want customers to say, no, this is what they have done. And it's a great way of generating more customers.
There's also the FOMO effect. If they're successful, then I want to be successful. So I need to use what they're using, right?
Very good. That is the lizard brain. Seth Godin, the lizard brain. The lizard brain is your caveman brain, right? And your caveman brain, your fight or flight brain, is very, very important in a lot of decisions. It's pretty interesting because people think that selling software is the hard part, getting the new business. And it is hard. Never want to downplay that. Keeping customers in 2024 is harder for all the reasons we talk about, right? Because people all think they're rational, and sometimes they are, right? Number 2, it's harder because of the competition and because the customer expectations. And number 3, you really got to dig into the detail. Give it enough time and effort and money, right? You can always find a way to make a customer happy. The question is it the right kind of customer that really values the relationship? That goes back to our first point of 3X, right? And if you can show a naysayer or somebody who's very data oriented how you have a little ATM machine that every dollar they put into your product comes back with 3X, right? Then that's a very valuable business model that translates into increased or optimized customer revenue and good growth.
Yeah, if you can measure the impact of your platform on their business, show them results, I think it's better than just keeping them happy and satisfied.
I would say it's essential in 2024. People don't want attaboys and vague kind of stuff. When you guys sent me the questions and said, this is what you want, no fluff. Like, I don't want this vague, like, theoretical crap, because no one wants to hear that. They all know it. They all read the same Harvard Business School article. What they want is tangible things that you've learned from your background that they can implement this week that's going to make a meaningful difference. And so hopefully that's what I gave you.
Exactly. So Dan, thank you so much for the insights, for sharing the experience, for sharing the tips and ideas here. And again, I think that all listeners here can take a lot of the things that you've mentioned here, especially the gorilla dance, and implement it right away in their business. So thank you so much. And
all right, you ladies did the possible. You got me to do it in less than 30 minutes. This is the first podcast I've done that hasn't gone an hour and a half. All right, right on your game. And I'm sure our listeners are appreciative as well, because I've been yelling for 28 minutes and they're like, okay, I got enough of this guy.
Amazing. Thank you. It was really great.